Love that man. The kind of person who should be in politics. The crowd erupts with cheers as the speaker paints a picture of a grounded, real-world leader. A veteran, a teacher, a coach, a hunter, someone who's lived a life beyond the spotlight. He's been a great governor, someone who understands responsibility, not just rhetoric. There's something authentic about him, even in the small details. Those flannel shirts he wears? They're not styled by consultants or handed to him for image. They come from his own closet, worn and real, just like his experience. As this image builds, it becomes clear why leaders like Obama value substance over spectacle. The audience begins to see a deeper contrast forming, one between authenticity and performance. Without even naming it directly, the comparison starts to take shape in people's minds. That contrast becomes impossible to ignore. On one side, a leader defined by calm confidence and lived experience. On the other, someone driven by image, unpredictability, and constant attention-seeking. It's subtle, but powerful. The audience starts to realize that true leadership doesn't need to shout to be heard. And then comes the shift. Decisions. Because in the end, leadership is measured by choices, not appearances. Obama leans into this idea with a sharp, almost humorous example. He recalls how, in a moment of supposed leadership on reality TV, Trump didn't tackle the real issue. Instead of addressing deeper problems, he made a surface-level call, firing Gary Busey. It gets a laugh, but it also lands a deeper point. These are the kinds of decisions that reveal priorities. Not thoughtful, not strategic, just reactive. And that's where the conversation turns more serious. Because leadership isn't just about making decisions, it's about owning them. Real leaders accept responsibility, even when it's uncomfortable. They don't deflect, they don't distract, they face the outcome head-on. And the audience can feel the difference. With Trump, there's often a pattern of shifting blame, redirecting attention, or turning criticism into noise. But strong leadership requires clarity under pressure. It demands focus when everything else is chaotic. That's what separates impulse from discipline. Then the comparison sharpens through something simple but revealing: communication. When Obama addressed the nation after the operation against Osama bin Laden, he spoke for just 9.5 minutes. Focused, precise, every word carrying weight. Now compare that to Trump's 48-minute speech about al-Baghdadi. It's not just about the length, it's about control, clarity, and purpose. One message feels deliberate and composed, the other stretched and scattered, and that difference says a lot about how each leader handles pressure. When the stakes are high, every word matters. The audience begins to understand that effective communication isn't about filling time, it's about delivering meaning. Jimmy Kimmel leans into this contrast, turning it into a side-by-side moment that's both funny and revealing. But beneath the humor, there's a serious takeaway. The way a leader speaks reflects how they think. Focused speech often signals focused leadership, while rambling can hint at uncertainty or a need to dominate attention. And just as that idea settles in, Obama shifts the focus again, this time to something more tangible: real-world skills. He brings up Tim, describing him as someone who doesn't just talk about ability, he proves it. A person who can take apart a vintage truck and put it back together again. The crowd responds instantly, not just because it's impressive, but because it represents something deeper: hands-on competence. It's the kind of skill that reflects patience, understanding, and real experience. Then comes the question that flips the moment. Do you think Donald Trump could do that? Even something simpler. Has he ever changed a tire in his life? The crowd laughs, but the implication sticks. It's not really about the task itself, it's about self-reliance and capability. Suddenly, the comparison sharpens again. One figure represents practical knowledge and grounded experience, while the other raises doubts about how much is real versus projected. That thought lingers as the tone shifts once more, this time to Trump's response. Instead of addressing the deeper contrast, he pivots to criticism, attacking Obama's record on the military and healthcare. His words come fast, forceful, and packed with claims. He labels Obama as one of the worst presidents, calls his policies a disaster, and points to rising costs and global threats. But beneath the intensity, there's a noticeable pattern. The focus isn't on presenting a clear alternative or a structured vision, it's on tearing down what came before. The energy feels reactive rather than composed, and the audience begins to sense it. Because when leadership is challenged, the response often reveals more than the criticism itself. Is it measured and confident, or defensive and overwhelming? That distinction becomes harder to ignore, and as that realization settles in, the bigger picture becomes clear. This isn't just about speeches, skills, or even policy debates. It's about the kind of leadership people choose to believe in. One path is loud, unpredictable, constantly demanding attention. The other is steady, deliberate, grounded in experience and accountability. As Trump continues to criticize and deflect, the contrast only grows sharper. The pattern of distraction, late-night reactions, extended speeches, self-promotion, starts to feel less like strategy and more like noise. And in that noise, something important gets lost: clarity. On the other side, the example being highlighted is quieter but stronger, leadership rooted in discipline, decisions backed by thought, and actions that speak louder than words. And that leaves the audience with a simple but powerful question. What truly defines a leader? The volume of their voice or the weight of their decision?